Now, from the studios of Into Tomorrow in Miami, this is ITTV.
You've heard us talk for years about the 12-volt industry. Everything from car audio and video to security systems, dash cams, and everything else that we like to put into our cars these days. Well, our next guest has been a friend of the show for at least the last couple of decades and a great representative of the 12-volt industry, as well as the many mom and pop shops you hear us talk about, like his, all around the country. So we're always delighted to have the owner of Cartronics, as in car and electronics. How clever, Cartronics. Lester Tax. Lester, welcome Into Tomorrow. Welcome back Into Tomorrow. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Dave. Great to be here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. We don't talk enough, it seems to me, about the 12-volt industry and the fact that there are so many businesses like yours that are mom and pop, if you will, and that's not meant in any derogatory way. That's a very positive thing because it's small businesses that really run the economy in the United States and many other countries for that matter. But here we're talking about folks that really put their heart and soul into a business. And I know you and your wife, Ivy, certainly do, and your techs and everybody involved. But tell me a little bit first about the 12-volt industry, for those who might not know what we're talking about.
Well, absolutely. The 12-volt industry is alive and well in 2022. Contrary to what a lot of people thought 10 or 15 years ago, that it would eventually no longer be a business because the OEM manufacturers and the new cars were coming out with all the newest technologies and they were providing the consumer with a car fully equipped, you might think.
Yeah.
However, that's not always the case. And so we're there still to provide the consumer with the newest technologies for cars that are either brand new or a year or 5 years or 10 or 20 years or more old, and bring them up to date. And also to maybe repair some of the things that wear out over time, because things do get old, and augment them to be even better than they were when they drove off the lot.
And of course, I want to remind our audience, if you're not already watching this video of the interview with Les, to be sure and run as fast as you can, not when you're driving, to intotomorrow.com and check out the video, because Lester brought a bunch of stuff to the studio that we're showing you and talking about these things. But it's really cool that you brought up the fact that just because it's a brand new car in 2022, or maybe you've got a 2023 already or plan on getting one, they certainly don't have not only everything you may want, but everything that you may want to work as well as you want.
That's correct.
And because, great, the car manufacturers, well, everybody wants this. Now everybody wants a screen and a larger screen and controls and do more things. And I've got a brand new Acura MDX and I love it, but it still doesn't have everything I want. And especially technology-wise. So I look to people like you to say, what can I add? How can I make it better? And it seems to me that one of the biggest things I'm sure all of you guys deal with all the time is audio in the car. We're in a really closed-in environment, sometimes an acoustically advantage, I think, because it's small, but we want our audio to sound better. What are the things that you hear all the time from customers that walk into Cartronics and say, help, I got a new car, I love everything, but I just can't hear my tunes the way I want.
Absolutely, because the manufacturers who make the new cars give the consumer various levels of choices when they purchase the car. So not every car on the lot is fully equipped to start with.
Yeah.
And so they'll have their basic audio system, they'll have their step-up audios, they'll have their premium, they've badged them with different brands like Alpine and Harman Kardon and Boston Acoustic and Bose. People are very familiar with that name. But even those are still limited to the performance that the manufacturer decides is enough for when the car rolls off the factory.
Right. And they try not to hike the prices so much that now somebody doesn't want to buy it because of all the premium stuff. So I'm sure that factors into it as well.
It most definitely does. So people will come into the store and say, often they'll ask for better speakers, or can we put in some more bass? And, we help guide them in enhancing the sound, whichever that may be, because the consumer usually assumes that it's just one or two things that they need to do, and we kind of educate them in a short, fast way. Explain to them how you're going to make that vehicle sound better, whether it's by bass or speakers or both, and some of the gadgets that I brought with me to show you today.
And by all means, feel free to show us some, because it makes me wonder, along those lines, are there a lot of folks that say, love my new car, but what can you do to make it better? And whether it's bass, because some people really want to feel the audio, or just their speakers, they think they should be a lot better, and in many cases they're absolutely right, they could be a lot better. Or the amplifier in general, which does more than just amplify the sounds, right? It does some really unique things these days.
It does. So when they build the cars now, unlike they did many years ago, the amplifier is involved with other things that are happening in the vehicle other than the sound of the music you're listening to. There's a lot of communication going on between the installed radio in the dash or the command center and the amplifier that's somewhere under the seat or in the back of the trunk. So part of the information that's occurring inside the factory amplifier could be part of the things that occur, like your backup sensors. When you put the car in reverse, those sounds that you hear beeping through the system is coming through the radio to the speakers. So your backup sensors are tied to that amplifier. When you turn your blinkers on, your left and right turn signals can be tied into the amplifier. When you receive a phone call, your Bluetooth conversation that you're having wirelessly with your phone is usually occurring through the front left speaker, or maybe the two front speakers, but not all the speakers in the car. So the amplifier is managing that conversation and muting the music while you're having a phone call conversation, or muting the music when there's a navigation prompt, et cetera, et cetera. So these technologies are occurring inside the amplifier, and that's happening through a communication platform that the radio and the amplifier have in their either CAN bus or their MOST, what they call it. So when we want to add a new amplifier or make it sound better by adding an amplifier or a subwoofer, we need to use technologies that allow us to introduce the new amplifier to the car without offsetting these natural experiences that you would normally have with the car's design. So here's one of the devices that we like to use. This is called the DSR-1 by a company, actually two companies, Rockford Fosgate, that some people may be familiar with, and iDataLink out of Canada that may not be so familiar, but a very good, great software company.
Now, this says it's an all-in-one digital sound processor and amplifier replacement interface.
That is what it is. So DSR stands for Digital Solutions for the Radio, DSR. And what we're going to do with a device like this is first we're going to flash it with software to mate with the vehicle specifically. So we're going to use a vehicle-specific harness, such as this one. This is for TO for Toyota, or this one, which is a CH for Chrysler. And we have a variety of different harnesses that we use. And we team these together with this DSR-1 that you originally were showing the consumer. So the DSR is flashed to the vehicle, telling the car that we're going to add an amplifier, enables us to literally plug it in to the car rather than cutting wires and offsetting any connectivity that some people would be concerned. You can't cut wires in my car.
Well, and consumers understandably would be thinking, oh my gosh, you're changing stuff that involves the brains in my car. What if? Well, but you're not cutting wires. You're not eliminating certain things. You're really enhancing everything.
Enhancing, right. So the DSR is going to basically have the same information that the factory amplifier had to support the backup sensors and the Bluetooth conversation, the turn signals, etc.
Because when you say you flash it, it's basically telling this device, this DSR, that it's this make and model and year vehicle.
Correct.
And it knows what it's supposed to do, what the radio controls do, whether it's also controlling air conditioning systems or something, or backup cameras, or any number of things.
Exactly. Good. So now that allows us to add a new amplifier to the car and improve the sound system by using better amplifiers. And then the consumer also has, through this device, the ability to change some of the sounds parameters, because this is also an equalizer. We've heard that word throughout many years.
You want to EQ things.
You want to EQ things, but we're able to access this equalizer through a virtual connection with our tablet or Bluetooth through our phone. So once we've installed the system, now we can tune the system individually through the left channel, through the right channel, through the front, through the back, raise and lower volumes, create different sound effects, and improve the sound without even changing the speakers or the radio yet.
Oh,
So
okay.
it gives the consumer the opportunity to take their brand new system or their perfectly working system and make it much, much, much better without investing into all the other equipment they thought they needed to buy.
So a consumer may come to you or any 12-volt dealer anywhere in the country and say, I need better speakers, and you can ascertain that it might not be the speakers. It might just be the brains that are controlling and sending all the audio to those speakers.
Correct.
And then, as you mentioned, that's awesome. They get a chance to now hear it as is with the improvements without changing things like speakers
Right.
or adding too much bass or what have you. And they might be thrilled. And if not, they're going to be thrilled with the enhancements, but now they still want more bass or something. Well, that's fine because you're there for them.
That is correct.
Love it. So that's really cool. And that's involving DSR devices. So you want to ask your 12-volt dealer about those kinds of things. And let's talk about then changing speakers or changing, adding bass. First thing that comes to my mind is kicker. I've always known of this company to real kick butt, if you will, right? Radio-friendly term. Because it seems like that's what people that really are into bass, I mean, if it makes my brains, what there's left of them, jiggle or my stomach rumble, it might be a little too much bass for me in my older age. But a lot of people still want to have bass. So how do you help folks with that?
Oh, absolutely. So, Kicker, you mentioned, it's a great name. It's been around in the industry for many, many years. It's one of amongst the many great brands that are on the market.
Sure.
So adding bass to the car does come in various ways, on various levels of intensity. So depending on the interests of the individual and the car they're driving, we help guide them in to figure out just how much bass they're really trying to achieve. And we have smaller and medium size and larger bass packages to offer. It could also be more than one. It could be one or two or four or whatever the consumer thinks that he needs.
Wow.
But,
or how much you want to upset the neighbors.
Or that.
Or
perhaps.
that.
But the goal is always to make the car sound better. Because often enough, it's always lacking some bass. And bass always makes everything else seem like it's a whole lot better.
Yeah.
We'll get into a customer's car often and we'll find that we'll go right to the radio's controls and test the tone settings on the radio and we'll see that the bass knob is typically turned up all the way. And that's a red flag for a guy like me. I tell the customer when I sit in their car, it's like, coming into the doctor's office and stepping on the scale first. It's the first thing we want to see. What's going on in your car? How are the stats?
Yeah.
So when we see the bass turned up all the way, we say, okay, well, you don't have enough bass in your car.
Right.
And you're turning the bass up all the way, which, by the way, is making the other speakers in your car stressed.
Really?
So, absolutely. So here's how the bass benefits everything else aside from making it sound better. By adding a small or medium size or a large woofer to the car, it also allows the consumer to move the bass setting of the radio back down to the middle, which is the neutral zone of a setting of a radio.
Yeah.
And that softens up the stress that is coming out of your front doors, or your back doors, your back deck. And then you will have then lost some of the bass by doing that, but getting it back by having a woofer added to the trunk.
By having a separate woofer in the trunk. And I'm sure we've all seen vehicles where it takes up the whole trunk if you want to get crazy.
Right.
But that's somebody who really loves bass and go for it, right? If that's what you're looking for.
And that could be right, but it doesn't have to be. Because woofers today are much more compact. Boxes are designed much flatter. There's a lot of technologies that are designed for vehicle specific, so it's made for that particular vehicle, depending on the car. But at the end of the day, you're not only adding bass, but you're also making the car sound better. That's one simple step.
And I like the fact that you said that it relieves the stress of the other speakers. I mean, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but now you're doing more of a balancing act, I guess, and getting that enhanced bass, in this case, that the customer is looking for.
Right.
Love it. And see, this is why you want to deal with a 12-volt dealer. This is why you want to deal with a small business in your community that takes care of your vehicle, of your cars, of your boat, of whatever that is 12-volt capable, right? Those kind of things. Because you're going to go to a big box store that the guy installed a refrigerator last time, and now he's installing your car stuff. It's like, wait a minute, you can't be an expert in everything. your 12-volt dealer is an expert in everything 12-volt. Okay. You know, he's not going to install your dishwasher or other things. He's dealing with your vehicle. So keep that in mind as folks listening and watching this video are dealing with. All right, so we've talked about bass. Now what about speakers themselves? Do people then come to you guys and say, I don't know, my speakers are maybe a little tinny, or they're just not quite there, or they don't sound like the way I like to crank it up? Maybe I'm overdriving them, if there's such a thing. Then you look at speakers themselves, right?
All of the above, absolutely, Dave. So when customers want to change speakers, the first question I ask is, why does anybody want to change their speakers? Why do we change speakers? Well, could be that the speakers are just old and dry rotted because it is Florida and there's a lot of humidity and there's a lot of sunlight, and you know, time takes its toll on products and they wear out and they need to be replaced. So that's a pretty common reason to change your speakers. It could be that someone was very abusive and broke them, even if it's a new car that just got been overdriven and destroyed. Or the speakers are in perfect working order and they've done everything else to make the car sound better, and they just want better sounding speakers. Because at the end of the day, the manufacturers give you a decent product, but it's not the very best.
Sure.
And there is a difference between the tonal quality of an ordinary speaker versus one that's been designed to sound better.
Even if it's one of the brand names that you make reference to earlier, it's
Correct.
like, oh, I got a new system with Bose or this or that.
Right.
Wonderful, but if it's still not serving your purpose, your desire for your audio, then maybe you need to replace them.
Better speakers sound better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that brings us, I think, to the controllers of the radios. Because here's the part that you've taught me a lot about, how even a brand new car that has this really cool interface up front, you know, you even brought some, how you can change the complete interface of an existing vehicle, whether it's a new or an older car, not losing any controls, whether it be air conditioning and other controls, but enhancing everything and adding to those things. I mean, this is something I think where 12-volt dealers around the country really do a great job with helping folks.
Absolutely. So the DSR we showed you first was for the vehicle that either you cannot change the radio,
right,
or do not want to change the radio. But it was always the first go-to method in the 12-volt industry for us guys that were in the car radio business, to show the consumer a radio first. Because at the end of the day, the radio is the very beginning of where the sound's coming from. So we call it the source unit because it's where all the information's coming from the radio or streaming from your phone, which is the most common way of listening to music today, aside from the old school CDs or etc.
Yeah.
So if we can change the radio, it often is the first choice. And it's not only for a better sound quality, because it definitely will be if it's a good radio, but also to introduce the newer technologies that the car did not come with.
Sure, added sources like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, those kinds of things, which even some newer cars don't have, but you want.
That's right. That's right. And the other segment is the larger screen. So I brought along one of many cool packages. This is a product.
Wow.
I know, it's a big box.
Yes.
This is a product that is designed for, in this particular case, 2013 and 14 only F-150 Ford truck. So this kit is basically a dash bezel to replace the factory dash bezel. So at the bottom left corner, they're showing you a picture of the Ford radio with a 4-inch screen and the buttons of the radio. That's how the Ford truck came in that year.
Right.
Customers first thought, gee, no, the screen is really small. I don't like the size. And secondly, it doesn't even have sound quality. And thirdly, mostly, it doesn't do Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So we want to take this radio out. But if you look at the way that dash was designed, how would you put a radio in a dash like that? Well, these guys make this bezel kit, and then once it's installed, it fits factory right back into the same spot. It enables us to put a full-size 7-inch diameter touch panel AM, FM, CD, DVD player, whatever, radio. And now we have a new car stereo installed into the vehicle. Looks like it came from the factory, but more, because the original controls that were there before are still going to operate like they did from the factory system, including anything where we maybe have a volume knob or a radio channel selector that was separate from the radio somewhere else. it can still operate through the new radio.
That's
So
sweet.
we can maintain steering controls, backup camera, all the other technologies that the car came with, and we can even add a few new technologies as well with the new radio.
And in this case, this one happens to be for a Ford F-150
Right.
particular model year and so forth, but they're available for most cars and trucks these days, or?
Most cars, yes.
Okay.
I would say most cars is a good way to say it. There's some cars that you can, but for all intents and purposes, the OEM, the aftermarket companies are doing a terrific job in keeping up with the technologies to allow the consumer to update their vehicle. And as we like to say, you don't have to have a new car to have new car technology.
Yeah.
You know, so these are the companies that give you that opportunity to get the new car technology in the slightly older car.
Sure.
And the new cars, too, that are coming out.
And we've had a lot of our listeners lately that have called about things like, I want to add some stuff to my existing car. It's a heck of an investment. No, I can't afford to sell it and buy a new car, but I do want to add some technology. And that's what's great about it, because now it's almost like you've got a new car, because you've got that Apple CarPlay or Android Auto and a lot of other features, maybe a woofer, so you've got more bass, all the various things we've talked about. What about alarms? That's something else that you guys excel with, because now you've invested, whether it's a new car or an older car with much more electronics, you don't want it disappearing on you.
Absolutely. And again, that same conversation 10, 15 years ago where what are we going to do with the new cars coming already fully equipped?
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that if you buy a new car, you get a remote control, a factory key fob, it has a security system, it's got a chip in the key. They can't steal my car anymore. And yet cars are being stolen probably at a higher rate now than ever before. Even brand new cars.
Yeah.
So the auto security industry is alive and well, and there's a lot of new innovations to enable companies like us to introduce security products into the vehicle, again, without upsetting the general architecture of the vehicle's design. So this is one I brought with me today. These are products from a company that is almost a household name for some folks. These are the guys from Viper.
Oh, sure. Directed Electronics, part of the Vox group these days.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is what they call the DS4. Here we go again, the DS, Digital Solutions. So this is digital solutions in the security industry. So the DS4, very much like the DSR1, is like a hard drive. We're going to flash the software of the vehicle specific that the consumer brings to our shop. Let's say we just accomplished yesterday. We had a 22 Ford F350. Gentleman had his car, brand new car, stolen in the first week he owned it.
Oh.
He was absolutely paranoid. How did they steal the car? It's got a factory key fob. It's got a chip in the key. They didn't tow the vehicle.
I was just going to say, they towed it away?
Well, that would be one way to do it. And there's a solution to that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's not how they stole the car. They didn't clone the key with a relay attack, which is one of the common technologies that they're using now, where they can actually read the key that's hanging in the hook in your house and broadcast it over to your car, and someone presses the start button and drives it off. No. They're hopping into the vehicle, and they're plugging a laptop into the vehicle's CAN connectors, which is one of their communication plugs that the vehicles all have, and through some methodology, able to replicate what the key does and start the car and drive it off.
Oh, geez.
So it disables the factory key fob, it disables the factory chipset that the car has. The car thinks the key is there, and they're starting the car and driving it off the parking lot. Not even a sound is being, except for the engine being started.
Right.
Right.
No alarm go off or anything. No horn blowing.
Right.
It's just as if you've been in your own car with your key fob in your pocket, starting it and driving off.
Imagine that. So they're stealing cars, old and new.
Yeah.
So this technology, aside from what initially they designed this for, was to work seamlessly so you can use your original key fob to arm and disarm it, and then it offers devices, because this is their security upgrade part of the DS4. That's the siren and the shock sensor and the tilt sensor, all the sensors that alarms have, so it feels if you bang in the car or break the window or lift it up. This is part of the package that makes it security. So that's an alarm system, but if you relied still on the remote control that the factory system had, you're not defeating what these thieves are doing when they arrive to your car and plugging their laptop in. So this device has a kill switch. And the kill switch that this device has is going to interrupt the starter, but not be defeated because you're going to get a Viper remote control, and the only way to turn the system off now is to use your Viper remote control. So the would-be thief can arrive to the car, they can clone your key, they can plug the laptop in, they can disactivate.
Might even start the engine, possibly?
Not
no?
start the engine. They can deactivate all the factory security methods of systems.
But not the aftermarket
this.
stuff.
Right.
Ah, okay.
And for the would-be thief at this point of the game, it's time to bail.
Yeah.
Right.
Because yet another reason to work with your local 12-volt dealer who knows how to deal with this stuff.
Right.
And this poor guy, customer of yours, that had his brand new truck stolen in a week. You know, oh my gosh, you got to feel for him.
Got a brand new one, and he had to put the system in.
Wow.
And this, by the way, this is one of the other attachments they have, which is one of the key benefits over today's technology we didn't have many years ago. The VSM introduces GPS tracking and alerts connected to the Viper system. And what happens with this is that you are able to, first of all, from your phone, you can arm and disarm it, lock and unlock it, start your vehicle, and then also if the alarm is triggered, it's going to be a report to your phone that the alarm is triggered.
Right. And give you location,
and give you location. Right. And if the vehicle is simply just moved from the spot that it's in, that's an alert to your phone. You can create all types of parameters with this. If it reaches a certain zone you don't want it to, if the battery gets too low, lots of things will send you alerts so that you are in touch with your vehicle virtually worldwide, because it's anywhere you have cell phone service.
Wow.
No limitations of range.
I remember bragging on this when I had it. The ability, long before some of the new cars, yes, even my new Acura has an app where I can start the car from anywhere. But previously, from around the world, I could start the car, because typically when it just sat at an airport or something for a week, the battery would die. So I'd remember to start it a couple of times, and it would be long enough for a 10-minute run to just keep the battery charged, and then it would turn itself off. Those are handy things to be able to know to do, let alone protecting the vehicle.
No doubt.
Yeah. And now it looks like some sort of harness.
Well, yeah. So this is, I just brought one of these harnesses along.
Okay.
I'll take it out of the box if you like. You can show the box.
Okay. You'll show the harness.
This harness is for a Chrysler specific. So what they have here is very, very specific plugs. It's a very clean install. This is to introduce the Viper system into the vehicle without hacking the car, so to speak.
And this is why you need your qualified 12-volt dealer to do these things, because it looks to me like just a spider web.
Right, well, it may, but it's a lot less of a spider web than it was 10 years ago, because we wired alarms with 15 or 20 wires in install, and you know, we did a very good job with it, but this is even better. Yeah. So this enables us to introduce the security product into the car without cutting into any vital areas that might be deemed unreasonable to the dealer when it comes to service. And this prevents any type of conflict with warranties and things that you know, somebody might have some concern about.
And those watching the video, and I hope you all are now, and if not, be sure to visit intotomorrow.com. Check out the video with less tax from Cartronics. I'm counting like 8 or 10 different connectors, and they're different types of connectors too.
Right.
So it's obviously knowing what goes where and the proper connections for all these things. But that's what makes some of this aftermarket stuff so easy to work for the consumer, are things like these harnesses.
That's right. Yeah. And not to say also that these manufacturers, when you're a partner with these companies, they do very detailed, extensive, and repetitive trainings with us to make sure that we are fully up to date and have a good idea. And we have amazing tech support from these companies that we have on demand if we have any kind of concerns while we're doing the install.
Great.
Yeah.
So again, stay away from the big box stores. Go to your local 12-volt dealer. If you're in South Florida, Cartronics.Broward.com is the site you want to visit. And Cartronics, of course, your business in Pembroke Pines, right across from Hooters. That's how I always remember how to get there. And of course, you're part of the 4 Cartronics family, if you will, of franchise in South Florida.
We are. We have 4 locations. We are all seasoned veterans, you know, us guys that have been within the company, so to speak, for 20, 30 years or more.
Wow.
And so we're owner-operators of our stores, and we're all very enthusiastic about the products and the business that we're in. And it's good to do business with someone who loves what they do.
Oh, sure.
Much like your local chef or your doctor, you want someone that loves what they do, so they're going to care about it daily and be on their game.
And be good at it. And that is what counts. And there's so much more to show. We're going to have to get Les back again very soon, because we didn't even talk about one of the cool things things of LEDs, lighting for the car, and light up your wheels, light up different turn signals, make it more fun. Those are some things I'd like to do even with my new car because I want more tech. That's what it's all about. Visit cartronicsbroward.com. It's C-A-R-Tronics, cartronicsbroward.com. And of course, Les is always helpful in terms of giving advice and generally maybe helping you find a dealer in your area. But it's very easy to do. Stick with the mom and pop shop. Stick with people like Lester and his wife and family and others in the community that are really invested in your community. Again, not the guy or gal that just installed an appliance and now he's suddenly a car expert. Stick with the 12-volt folks. They really maintain everything around this country. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us. We've got to get you back. So much more to talk about.
Thank you, Dave. It's been great.
Our pleasure. To cartronicsbroward.com. We'll get you there, of course, when you visit us at intotomorrow.com. Meantime, stay tuned. Much more to come. I'm Dave Graveline as Into Tomorrow continues right here on the Advanced Media Network.